Hi, thank you so much for joining me for today's process video. And today, once again, I'm using my Spectrum Gardenia from 49er Market. These two photos were taken the other weekend when we had our first nest box Warrington weekend crop. And the first one is of my daughter, myself, Jackie and Julie. And the second one is of our wine glasses on the Friday night before we started the weekend when we'd all got together. So you can see the photos are printed 3x4, so I printed both of them onto 1 4x6 paper, and now I'm just choosing some pieces to mat and layer these photos onto. I decided I wanted to use that lilac background. It was the last piece that I had left of that paper, so I tore it in half and stuck either side to the white background cardstock, and then I'm just using bits from the 6x8 papers to layer behind the photos to create some mats. So I wanted to use this red to bring that through onto the right hand side because Amelia is wearing her lovely red jumper. So I wanted to make sure that that was mirrored onto the right hand side, and I really like those paint swatches that you can see on that paper. So I'm just being careful the way that I'm trimming the long sides off first because I know I will want to use those as layering pieces on this layout or other layouts, and then I'm trimming the rest of it down. So that one piece I am going to use on the left hand side there, so I'll just trim that down or tear it down to size and get that stuck behind those papers. And the white photo mat that I've got there is actually cut from an All and Create die that I've got in my stash. I cut it for a previous layout but didn't end up using it, so I thought I would use it on this layout, and I'm keeping it the size it is. It's slightly taller than I would normally use, but I quite like the look that it gives, and I'm going to layer some bits up on the bottom to kind of hide the fact that it's quite long at the bottom there. So just bringing in some little bits and pieces. I've got a little bit of this stripy paper left, so I'm going to add that at the bottom left. And then I'll bring in another piece to add here, just trying to work out which colours I want to show on the layout. So just decide that I want those purples showing on the right hand side there. And I've just torn the edge again just to add a little bit of different texture there. So this is building up nicely. It's very cool toned, but I will bring in some yellows in due course, or some, well, creamy yellows, vanilla yellows, just to mimic the yellow of Julie's top and also the wine in our glasses. So I'm playing with this frame thinking that I might use it. I don't in the end. It does come in a couple of times, but I decide against it in the end. So to balance it, I wanted to bring something else down to the bottom here. So I'm going to use this little film strip laser cut piece. All these bits in this envelope are from the ephemera packs or the laser cut packs. I've just combined everything into one. That's what I've got left from the Gardenia collection. So I found another scrap of this stripy paper, so I'm adding that to the right of the photo there. I'm just going to have a look at what else I've got here to add in. I toy with this flare badge from Hey Little Magpie, but I don't end up using that. And then I find this piece that says Happy Day, and it certainly was a happy day, so definitely wanted to add that to that mat. So I'm going to glue this down and commit. I'm gluing everything down to the strips of paper, but not to the main cardstock on the back, because I know I want to bring some mixed media into that white cardstock there. So these two strips will remain independent from the backing paper. So I want to add this film strip, so just tucking that in. It's actually the blue one, but the reverse of all the laser cuts are lilac, so that works quite nicely with these papers. So now I'm just going to come in with my pencil and lightly draw around where both of these sides go, just so I can add my mixed media in the middle and not put the things where they're not going to be seen. I didn't want to waste my time creating loads of background that's just going to be covered. So on both sides, and then I can move those pieces to one side and get going with the mixed media. And I'm going to be using various Hey Little Magpie stamps. So I start off with the script stamp, and I'm using weathered wood because it's my favourite grey to add details to a background without being too strong. And I'm just using the script stamp, just one of them, without a block, just to add a slight inking right the way along the edge here. And I'll do it again on the other side as well. I don't want the edges to be blocky, and that's why I'm using it without a stamping block, so that I can just curl up the stamp and use little bits of it. So you can see just gradually adding the stamping all the way along, and using second and third generation stamping as well, just so that it's differing depths of colour all the way down. So that's the first lot of stamping done. And I'll bring the paper back in just to check that I'm happy with the positioning. So this one I decide that it covers a little bit too much of that stamping, so I'm just going to trim the very edge off just so that it sits a little bit further in and you can see the stamping much more clearly now. So now these are the new grid stamps, so I'm just going to add a little bit of that. So I bring in, I think it's one of the, is it speckled egg? Quite possibly speckled egg, or it might have been the lavender actually. Yeah, it's the lavender one. Something lilac. Gosh, I'm terrible with these names. I've got it here. It is shaded lilac. So just using that in a couple of positions, and then I've pulled in the pink one, which is spun sugar. Yes, spun sugar, to add that to the top. These colours all work really nicely with this collection. So just adding a couple of those across the page, and then coming in with the grid from that same set. And I'm just adding that as another layer over the top of the other bits. And I'm just adding the ink in certain parts of the stamp, not all over the place. And this is the speckled egg that I'm using on this one. So all very pale colours, just to add a little bit of interest to that background without being too powerful. So what I've done on the left, I want to mirror onto the right as well. So again, just coming in with some of those grid pieces. Almost there. So again, I'm thinking this is very cool toned at the moment, so I'm going to come in with my antique linen or scattered straw, I forget which one I used, and I'm just using a blending brush to blend that all the way across that middle section, making it heavier on the left and the right where the paper's going to sit and blending towards the middle. And I really like the warmth that that brings to the layout. And then I just want to add some splatters as well, so I'm just going to add a little bit of the ink to my glass mat and then some water. It is scattered straw, I think, because it's much more yellow than the antique linen. You will have seen that when I put the lid on the ink. And then I'm just going to blot up those splatters that I added, just so that they add a tiny bit of interest, and it also lifts some of the ink up that I'd blended in. So it's just creating a nice mottled effect. So now all that is done, I can add my strips of paper down to the layout and start really embellishing. So just adding plenty of ATG to get these both adhered down. So there's the first side, and then I'll come in with the second side. And I really like this paper that I've chosen because it's got all those different tickets and papers. It looks like it's a patchwork effect, and I do like the look of that. So just curling up those edges. I'm still not quite sure about that. I feel like there's something missing from the edges, and I will bring something else in due course. But in the meantime, I'm wanting to add a few more red elements. So I found that little bread tag there. I add to the top left of that photo. And for now, I'm adding this red heart to the bottom right, but I do switch that out. I decide it's just a little bit too bright. So bringing in one of the Viewmaster reels from the ephemera pack. And it's just a really subtle look because it's white with pink splotches on it. So I like how that sits against that mixed media background. So just tucking that under there. And then I find this tag. So I'm just going to use the top of the tag there with the little black eye hole. And then I found this tab, which I'm going to add my date to. So I'm just adding that to the top of the left-hand side. So tying in some wax twine to that bread tag. I will tie that in a bow. Just to finish it off, I'm just having a mess deciding how I want it to sit. And then I find this lovely blue tag that says very best. So I want to add that down to the bottom of the photo, and then I'll bring in that little strip of blue that's left over to the left-hand side of the photo as well, just to bring the blue around that photo mat there. So just straightening up that edge and then sticking that down. So it shows you can use these bits in a different way. That was a tag with a fishtail banner at the bottom, but I just changed it to a word phrase. So now adding some wax twine to that tag hole and just letting it trail down the left hand side of the layout. I really like how that looks, so I'm just going to add a couple of dots of glue where the string crosses over one another, and then use my glue to weight it down. I also use the glue lid to hold it at the top there. So here's where I tie this bread tag in a bow. And then I'm still looking for other bits and pieces to add. I find this little bit of pink lace, so I'm going to add that. It's just one of the laser cut elements again. Tuck that into the left hand side there. And this is where I decide that that lilac heart is going to look much better than the red heart there, so I just switch that out. So now I'm going into my stickers to see if there are any words that I can add. I find this one that says BFF, and so I add that to that heart. There's also one that says treasure this, and I really do treasure the memories of that weekend. It was absolutely wonderful. And then this one says loving this. So here's where I decide I wanted to bring in that stripy paper again down the left and right hand side. This one is actually a Simple Stories paper, and it was just from my scraps, but it works really nicely with the 49er Market. So I'm just going to tuck this in down either side of the strips of paper. So first of all, working on the left here, and I'll curl up the edges, and then I'm going to add it to the right first of all. Gosh, can't do my lefts and rights today. So now that's stuck down to the right, I'll just add the same to the left. And I don't bother trying to feed it behind the photo, I just tuck it under the top and then do the same at the bottom. There's no point in trying to feed it behind the photo. It's just adding glue to get that stuck down. And then doing the same here. So just tearing it off so that it just tucks behind the top of the photo. And this is the great reason for not adding glue right to the very edge of your photos, that it's easier to tuck things under if you decide what you want to add something else. So just tucking that into the bottom, and then I'll trim off that little bit at the bottom there. Just messing to make sure that the edges are nicely curled. And I'm just using wet glue for ease to get that stuck down. And look at how that changes the layout. It really solidifies everything and makes everything look like it's cohesive. So this is a Viewmaster reel that I cut using one of the Hey Little Magpie dies. I just wanted to lay that up at the bottom, bringing that blue down there. And then I also wanted to bring this red heart in somewhere. So I'm just having a faff. It ends up to the right of that very best in the end, just there. And that creates a nice little cluster. And then I find a pink ticket, so I'm going to add that down at the bottom here. And then I'm coming in with my title, and I decided I wanted to use these letter stickers from Simple Stories, Simple Vintage. So I'm just going to spell out Nest Box in the typewriter font, and then Warrington Weekend in the smaller alphabet font. This sticker book is amazing, so do grab one if you haven't got one already, because you'll find you'll reach for it again and again. So it's the Simple Vintage Essentials. So now my journaling is going to go down the left-hand side here, which worked really nicely, but then I felt there wasn't balance. It was very heavy on the left-hand side where I've got that title and also the journaling. So I'm just going to add my date and have a little bit of a think about how I'm going to balance that out. So the date goes on the top of that tab there, 6th of July 2024. And then I'm bringing in this smile word from the same collection. These are the foam stickers. I love these foam titles. You can see I've nearly used them all up now. So I'm thinking that might sit there, but it doesn't feel quite right. And then I find this title, which is just amazing, A Little Something Awesome. So that really worked along the bottom of the photo there. And that's when I realised that I need to bring that smile piece down underneath that. So first of all, looking through to see what else I can find. And I find this little sticker that says Together. So I'm going to add that underneath Nest Box Warrington Weekend. And that creates a little bit more balance on the left-hand side, having the white of Nest Box and then the white of that Together piece. And then just bringing in some little scattery bits, this little white heart here and a black heart underneath the other photo. Just seeing what else there is. Here's the black heart. And this is when I decide that I do need to move that smile down to the bottom. And you can see that just balances everything out. It brings the black down to the bottom to mirror the black on the left-hand side of the title Warrington Weekend. And I'm just looking to see if there are a couple of words to layer up on that tag. Again, a little bit of black just to bring that balance in. So one says celebrate and the other one says together. There we go. And that's the layout done. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I've provided you with some inspiration, and I shall see you again soon. Bye.